Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and today I'm in an unusual episode, something that I mention it every once in a while, but I don't talk about often. And today I thought I might dedicate an episode to this because I have something strange and weird and unique about my voice and my mannerisms and my accents, and I just figured I want to discuss it. So this is a moon day and the sun hour. Sun is in the in the seventh house. Sun is in the seventh house in Leo. Venus is now conjuncting Lilith, retrograde conjuncting Lilith exactly. Um, that will put Mercury in the eighth, Mars in the eighth in Virgo. Um, Ascendant ruled by a retrograde Saturn, so this is probably going to be weird. The moon is in Taurus in the fourth house, 5 degrees Taurus, exactly sextiling this retrograde Saturn, um, and slowly applying to conjunct Jupiter. So we may have some moon Jupiter harvest from Jupiter in Taurus that we can use for ourselves. And that's pretty much the personal planets chart. So, yeah. As for the topic, so this is actually about my weird and changing accents and mannerisms. And as far as I know, it's not foreign language syndrome. And I don't think it's the chameleon thingy that people have when they are post-traumatic and they adjust themselves to their surroundings. It's something way, 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 way deeper than that. It's like non-volitional part of my channeling. So basically, I would take on impressions and mannerisms and accents non-volitionally, like out of the blue. It can be if I think about something or someone, or let's say I think about a certain country, then my accent would change sometimes. Um, or if I'm around a certain person, then my accent can change non-volitionally, especially if they have a very accentuated accent. So I've had some really fun and weird stories around this. First of all, my instructor was, it's not the offender, actually, he was supporting me, so in academia, and he was from Argentina. Okay, so I would catch on, like, he's very like smile, like the Argentinian people have this smile. Okay, they have a smile around, even when they're mad they're smiling. this is this is so true. And so I would catch on that impression. Like, we never talked about that being an issue for me, but sometimes I would really fear like communicating with him because I would be afraid that I would catch on his impressions and he would think it is imitation when it's actually not. um, I had another professor. She was also not offender, a French professor. She was very, very, very intelligent. From her, I learned that if Hitler would die in 1936, he would be seen and considered as one of the great leaders in the 20th century. Okay, it's just he lived on too long, and he made, and then he made like real bad stuff. Um, so that, and she's the second generation to Holocaust. So yeah, so she had this very accentuated French accent, and I remember when I was even afraid to take on her course, their electional course, not electional astrology, like the elective you take in the academy, academia, whatever, um, because I was afraid that I would catch on to the accent and I wouldn't know how to explain it to her. The one person that happened to me to his face, which was funny because he was Dutch, and I was born and raised in Israel, but I was born and raised to a parent that had spent a decade and a half with a Dutch person. So prior to my birth, so I and of course I visited Netherlands and so. So yeah, I like it. I wouldn't always speak Dutch like, right? So I understand a lot of the language, but yeah. Anyway, I was in Madeleine UN, and it was the one of the panels of the judges, the chairs. They were called the chairs, honorable chairs, was Dutchy, and he had a very prominent accent. He was also very dominant energetically and in terms of personality. I remember I spoke with him and I began to have his accent. And I told him, listen, I didn't know what to call it. So I said, I have mood disorder. Because I thought maybe it's the Camelon effect. And I was like, and he was like, yeah, he was just smiling and nodding me, being the nicest person ever. He got that was not volitional. I was not trying to imitate him. So that was my thing. When I began vlogging, I really noticed that if I would think about something or someone, immediately the accent would change, and it happens non-volitionally. And because I'm half channeling, then the channels they come with the mannerisms. So it is very interesting how the voice can express so many things. And I was even, one of my parents said to me when I was young, he's like, be yourself, be you, be you. Why all these mannerisms? I'm like, but all of this is me. It's not something in my control. All of this is me. So yeah, that is pretty much kind of like concisely how it works. So it means if I'm in the vicinity of a certain energy, I can non-volitionally catch my, like if I don't really hold, like even if I hold myself tightly, I just poof, it just happens. If I think about something, someone just crosses my mind, this can happen. If I'm half channeling and some energy comes and 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 it would have a certain mannerism. Sometimes it's even a person that exists, it's not like mediumship or something like that. And it may be people I never met sometimes, so, or never met in the physical or whatnot. So that is very, very interesting. Um, I don't know about like how it works in terms of like the brain studies and so on. My prediction is that it should work like channeling, in addition with, I don't want to say Tourette because it's not like I have Tourette. I'm just talking about the neural activity that I predict to see certain patterns that are similar, like channeling, non-volitional channeling, and some of that, because there are impulse. It's by impulse, okay. So it's that the non-volitional aspect of it. So that is my prediction. And no, I don't try to change this, although it is embarrassing. I have been living like this all my life. It is a part of my voice. It is a part of who I am. And also it is, by listening to myself, I understand who comes, or what am I thinking about, and I understand, oh, now I'm in the line of thought of that person. Now I'm in the line of thought of that person. That can also help when I give credit to people. Like if I do my own talk and I think about an idea, it would come with the mannerism. It's easier to remember who said this. And then I can say, oh, this I learned from that person. This I learned from that person. So it actually helps me when I want to honor and credit people that contribute to my thinking. And I much prefer that we would grow awareness to the various ways that we can express ourselves, and the understanding something like this is not imitation. It's not like trying to make fun of somebody, but it's also not something that I desire to not have. It's a trait. It's not a disease, and that's the way I see it. It's a weird trait, but I find it cool. I find it something that I actually like about myself. And those energetic things can take on a certain fashion where it can be more problematic is like actually intimacy, because I I need to remember like who am I, and it's very difficult when something changes so much. So that can be tremendously difficult. But this is not the only difficulty people have with intimacy. So there's this question is like, okay, some impression comes in. So like, no, I want the person to be attracted to me and not like to the a non-volitional impression. But it's not like I would like to get rid of it. It's not like I would like to not have this ability, not this, yeah, this ability or trait is more like trait than ability. It is also ability because it's a sort of channeling. Um, so yeah, if you want to try and connect it to my chart, then I can open my chart here. So I don't know how to connect it. I can tell you like this. My Chiron is Mercury ruled, and this is me. Then that can mean, and my Mercury, I think it is stationed, and I don't remember if to go direct or not. But this Chiron that is Mercury ruled can signify speech impairment or something with the speech that has to do with something. So the communication, and I have Rahu in Gemini, so that means that is something that I tend to more later in life, or that I'm learning to accept about myself more like, the second part of life, kind of to leave my Gemini house. My Mercury is in Aries, 26 degrees. Aries in the second house, Chiron in the first house. And indeed, the most problems that I had with this was one of my parents. They told me like, hey, be you. It's kind of like, but all of that is me. I just appear in different impressions or in different mannerisms, but all of that is me. So that is where I felt like this chronic wound that took a while for them to kind of like settle in and not try to get me to be me when I am me. So that kind of when it settled in. And I actually met people to whom something like this happens, but it's not so much like me with the accents, but actually they are affected by different energy. Even if they're not actors or something like this. And it so much so that we could recognize the energy that they are being affected by, and then we would work to kind of like set boundaries or decide what we want to do about this. Like I had a good friend that whenever they would come, let's say from work or from their friends, and they would be bad influence or something like this, sometimes if they wouldn't notice that, I could say, like, listen, did you speak to this and that person? It's like, yeah, how did you know? I'm like, I'm seeing you, I'm seeing this person speaking through you right now. So that is something that I understand more people haven't. I haven't seen that being discussed. That people take on impressions and take on energies, and it's just this awareness. Okay, it's not a disability or a disease. We are all connected, and we have points of intervention where we can affect the system, not just be affected by the system. So yeah. Another thing I wanted to say about Mercury, it is applying to conjunct Venus, and it is applying to oppose Pluto retrograde in Scorpio. And Mercury is something that I want to say to raise awareness, but without raising stigma. Because Mercury, it rules trade, it rules contracts, it rules communication, it rules small technology, things you do with your hands, like skills. As the ruler of Virgo, also the details of something, maybe small computations. And indeed, I have dyscalculia, and this Mercury is also separating from a trine to Neptune. So I don't blame Neptune on this. Maybe Chiron actually, because I make mistakes with the small calculations, and I had just a funny story about that too actually. That I would, if I would understand the theory behind an equation, then I could correct the equation. But if I don't, but that is the opposite of how math is supposed to work. Okay, so it's like that's really intelligent, but it's not what math is supposed to do. Um, so you can't delineate from the theory. You have to do the math and see does it, you know, does a theory emerge from the mathematics. This is, you have to do good calculations to do this, and I don't have these good calculations, so I'm not a mathematician in that way, although I like it sometimes to learn about this, but it's very funny when I try to do it myself, even satirical. And the first of all, having Chiron, it means that yes, there is impairment to the language, to the this, to the that. Mercury also rules children, okay? So having the Mercury in certain positions, like Chiron ruled by Mercury, or Mercury opposing an outer planet. Yes, in some cases, I don't say I have the world, in my hand that I can tell you this is exactly so. But we also need to be aware and understand the connection between children that are hurt or abused or experience certain trauma, whether it's secondary or to them, and speech impairment. And and again, that doesn't mean that every person is having speech impairment has been hurt in childhood. It doesn't mean that every person that has been hurt in childhood will have a speech impairment. That being said, there is a subset of people who have been hurt in childhood and will develop a speech anomaly, or anomaly in the nervous system that is expressed in such a way. Okay, so this Pluto, when Mercury is ruling the seventh and fourth, fourth is our home, upbringing, and Pluto here opposes this Mercury. Yes, it meant that as a very young child, I was exposed to certain traumas, some that I know, some that I don't know, and those have affected my nervous system and my speech. So I don't outrule the factor of trauma in my sort of ability, okay? I'm not overinflating like oh, I am so special, I can speak like this, I can speak like that. It's kind of non-volitionally. I'm not overinflating that to kind of like a superpower, but I also do not I also do not think of the way that I express myself as a disease, okay, or as a bad side effect of something, and that is the way that I see it today. It's like 39, almost 40. So yes, this is what pretty much because Mercury is language, so this is what I would look at. But you must understand that it's not imperative, and every chart has its own, shine and the way the things are expressed. And it's also, we have points of interferences. We have how are we informed in life, what are the options that are open to us in life, and what choices do we make within the realm of choices that we have. So yeah, that is particularly a thing. Oh, the midheaven is right on 22 degrees. It's on my Mars actually, and my lot of the I see on my lot of spirit with Uranus here on the 22nd degree. Um, so let me know, do you know people that have those weird expression like mannerisms? And perhaps this will help you to kind of think before you project. It's like, hey, that person might not have Tourette, and they're not imitating you. They might not be ill, and they might not be mocking you or behaving strangely on purpose. Um, and that gap that we can make to contain more opportunities perhaps can assist in enjoying more facets of the world. I know that me being me, I found out, about so many interesting things that we just have as a part of humanity, whether it's non-volitional, non-dual experiences, and how prevalent they are, contrary to what people think. And if you're not aware of it and something happens to you, you might think you might actually be misdiagnosed. You might actually receive, treatment that is endangering to your life. While if you were in another community and there would be a discourse about this, then you would understand that, hey, I'm like, this is not, I'm not, like, it's not something wrong with me. And there are things to do about this. There are various decisions to do about this, including radical acceptance. So that is where I stand. And this is Moon Sol. So Moon will be applying to square Sun. Sun is exactly squaring Jupiter right now on 14 degrees Leo and Taurus respectively. Quite interesting. So, but yes, this Uranus on 22nd degrees of Taurus is a thing on a mundane level. It was not the most easy couple of days on a mundane level, and Venus is applying to tightly square it with her from her invisibility. And that's just up in the sky, Venus in Leo. So I hope you have enjoyed this episode. That it kind of, oh, when people talk about the elephant in the room, it's usually more like a comic relief, but also the ability to open our eyes and see the various different colors of the life experience of ourselves and of people around us, and that those things that are not being talked about, not only in weird accents, but also voices or happenings or things that have been omitted from the news. It doesn't mean that they don't happen. It doesn't mean that they're not prevalent. And it doesn't mean that if you're experiencing that or thinking that or discovering this information, you are, crazy. Um, and I can tell you, like, however crazy you think you are, you really need to understand there's always a community of people that perhaps is not formed yet, or perhaps you don't know about yet, that are as crazy. Okay? And that can really assist in looking at the world from various points of view. This is why traveling is also so important. And we can do this to a certain degree by being exposed to certain cultures, listening to such a video or something like that. I don't have fancy equipment or the fancy energies to make a video, a visual, but that too, that too is part of that diversity. So yes, thank you.